Today on the Locked On Blues podcast, the St. Louis Blues won of their round one series against the Minnesota Wild in convincing fashion, winning 4-0. There's so many different storylines to get into. David Perron had a hat trick. Ville Husso had a shut in his playoff debut. Jared Spurgeon pulled some dirty crap on Pavel Buchnevich and only got a fine for it. There's so much to get into. This is going to be a busy episode. Make sure you stay.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Locked On Blues podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and your number one source for daily Blues content. I'm your host, Hyman, and I'm taking you guys on a solo episode today. Lots to get into. Where to start? Before I get into any of it, I want to make sure to thank you guys for making Locked On Blues your first listen. We are free and available on all podcast platforms, so thanks for making us part of the team. So, plain and simple, I think the narrative early on is the fact that the St. Louis Blues had their best playoff performance in like 3 years. This is probably better than any game in the Vancouver series 2 years ago and better than any game in the Colorado series last year where they got swept. And they looked dominant out there. I think a lot of people were maybe a little convinced that the Blues would have success in this series because of their success in the regular season against the Minnesota Wild. But I don't know if anyone really thought that it would go like this. I expected it to be, high scoring back and forth. And the Wild just looked frustrated from the moment the puck dropped. It really felt like not to sound cocky, but it felt like the Wild just didn't have a chance at any point in this game based on the way that they're playing. They played as if they were behind from the opening puck drop. They seemed frustrated. They seemed like they couldn't solve Husso. They hit a bunch of posts. Their power play didn't look good at all. They had so many power play opportunities, and yeah, the Blues PK was tremendous, but the Wild didn't really generate a whole lot of great scoring chances. I don't know. This is gonna be a little bit all over the place because I'm reeling with that high energy off of last night's win. I guess we could talk about Ville Husso in the first segment. And I don't think that he was really challenged all that much. He made a lot of saves, obviously, and had a shutout. Anytime you have a shutout, it's a great performance. And me saying he wasn't challenged isn't really a knock on him. It's more of just a testament to the Blues defense. He definitely made some tough saves. There were a couple like one-timers that he had to stretch out for and definitely robbed a couple of Wild players here and there. They also hit a lot of posts. But overall, Husso just looked comfortable out there. He looked like a guy that wasn't making his first start in a playoff game. Also, for the record, I believe that Ville Husso getting a shutout in his playoff debut is the first time that has ever happened in St. Louis Blues history. So shout out to Ville Husso for that. He looked amazing. The defense played really well as well on top of that. I don't think it was just Husso. Nico Mikla is a guy that was definitely a big question mark coming into that game, especially with, a guy like Scandella sort of being up in the air whether or not he was going to play. Mikla came in and used his physicality and played really well. But again, Ville Husso, having a guy like that, a guy that's been a bit of a journeyman, 27, just now making his real debut in the NHL in terms of starting caliber minutes, has a really, really good record on the regular season. Big question coming into the playoffs is, can he translate his game into playoff success? And pitching a shutout is amazing. It's something the Blues didn't even do all that much during the regular season. They relied on their offense, and the offense was certainly there last night against the Wild, but they could have scored one goal and won that game based off of the play of Ville Husso. It was great to see, and it gives me a lot of hope for the rest of the series and the rest of the playoffs if Ville Husso really is, a guy that can perform at that level in the playoffs. This team could win a Stanley Cup. I don't want to say goaltending was the biggest question mark heading into the postseason, but In 2019, Jordan Binnington played or had one of the greatest playoff performances by a goalie we've ever seen. He went on a crazy run and he played extremely well throughout that entire playoff stretch. And, I said, saying that 2022 Ville Husso is better than 2022 Jordan Binnington, but he's still, not really close to what 2019 Jordan Binnington was in terms of his playoff success, in terms of stealing games. And I don't know if you could say that Ville Husso stole the game last night, but you could tell how frustrated the Minnesota Wild were getting between just, getting hemmed in by the Blues here and there. And then Ville Husso just not allowing anything. His rebound control was really, really good. Not a lot of second chance opportunities for the Minnesota Wild. You could tell they were getting frustrated. And that's what led to Jarrett Spurgeon committing what I thought was an extremely, extremely dirty play, chopping down on the ankle of Pavel Buchnevich, which I guess I'll get into in the second segment. Second segment, I guess we can talk about the game as a whole, the way that the ebbs and flows. I'll start it off talking about that play because I've been kind of heated about it ever since the announcement came out that he was only getting fined, because I thought it was a real piece of crap play from Spurgeon there. So I'll get into that. I'm also going to, like I said, going to get into the whole game, sort of just break it down goal by goal, how the momentum was going. And then third segment, all about David Perron. He's been spectacular. I want to talk about him. And then also just like the keys to success for the St. Louis Blues in the rest of the series based off of what we saw last night. A lot of stuff to get into. I wouldn't be surprised if this episode ran a little long. Should be a fun one. But before we get into any of that, I want to tell you guys about one of our newer sponsors and called Athletic Greens, and they have this great product called AG1. You've heard me talk about this before with a couple different sponsors, but I'm a college student. I'm in my last week of classes right now, which is freaking crazy. So I'm busier than ever. And when I'm this busy, I have a really hard time fitting in good meals and just treating my body right with what I eat and also what I drink. But that's until I kind of discovered AG1. AG1 is a little scoop product that you can put into a glass of water. And with one delicious scoop, you're getting 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All of the important things for a healthy gut. AG1 is lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, or gluten free, or you're not on a diet at all. It is usable for everybody. Like I said, lifestyle friendly. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. And plus, you'll be supporting a good cause, because in 2020, AG donated over 1.2 million meals to kids. So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. I'll be right back with the second half of today's episode. All right, so I alluded it to a little bit before the break. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, but I just wanted to mention it. Just wanted to bring it up. So late in the game, Minnesota Wild, like I said, have been frustrated since opening puck drop. Things are getting chippy, but there's nothing really over the edge for most of the game. Back and forth hits, couple scrums, lots and lots of penalties, couple roughing calls. The refs were doing a decent job of keeping a handle on the game. Maybe they were using their whistle a little too much, whatever. Minnesota Wild, like I said, clearly getting frustrated. There's this one play in the Blues defensive zone, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, where Pavel Buchnevich and Jarrett Spurgeon are kind of battling for a puck a little bit. Jarrett Spurgeon, obviously captain of the Minnesota Wild, takes no penalties, nominated for the Lady Byng. Real stand-up guy, real classy player. And this isn't me being sarcastic. Like, he has a reputation of being a very classy player and not doing things that he is about to do or I'm about to describe. They get kind of tangled up. They both go down a little bit. Both kind of get up to one knee. And then Jarrett Spurgeon, who's behind Pavel Buchnevich, takes his stick in two hands and just cross-checks down onto the back of the ankle of Pavel Buchnevich. Now, I don't know if you guys have played hockey before or have worn hockey gear, but the spot where Jarrett Spurgeon chopped on the Pavel Buchnevich, there's not padding there. That's the back of your shin pad. And unless he clipped them on the bottom of on like the top of the skate, which even then doesn't do a lot. That's very good chance he got just right down onto the back of his ankle with no padding. That's Achilles, ankle, shin, whatever you want to call it. We as Blues fans and Pavel Buchnevich, we're very lucky that wasn't a legitimate injury. I mean, not to be extreme, but that could have caused serious damage to Pavel Buchnevich Achilles right there. That's direct cross check to the back of it. His it's not like his foot was in the air, just gets compressed against the ice. Real close range, intent to injure, textbook definition, intent to injure. And it's just frustrating to see. From the series the game was going so well in just terms of competitiveness and fun. I really enjoyed watching it. Obviously, the Wild were frustrated, but still, they had their chances. It's not like they were getting blown out. It was a fun game, and then to see something like that, it's like, come on, there's no place for that, no place for that in hockey. Thank God Pavel Buchnevich is okay. Got up and skated it off, totally fine. But like I said, intend to injure, and he did it in such a way where I very well could have been sitting here today talking about, is Pavel Buchnevich going to return this series or this playoffs or whatever? Very, very dirty play. And, got announced last night that the league would be taking a look at it, Department of Player Safety, whatever. And knowing their reputation, I don't think anyone was too optimistic that it would be anything serious. But most of the takes that I saw online, and my take was that probably deserved a game. If you look it up in the NHL rulebook, intent to injure is a match penalty, which when you get a match penalty, you're out for the game. So technically, what should have happened is he should have been kicked out of the game for that. So whatever, on ice, that's a minimum of a game misconduct or whatever. To see him only get a $5,000 fine is disappointing, because it's different than something like, and not to, I'm talking about the Kyle Clifford hit in the Toronto game. Kind of threw a late hit, boarding, whatever, got suspended for that, I believe. Not to say that hit wasn't awful, because it was completely dirty, but the Spurgeon thing is different, because you could argue that the Kyle Clifford hit was, I guess, a hockey hit, quote unquote. Obviously, it was a late hit, it was boarding, but like, at least he's just kind of trying to make a hit, rile his team up. There's no just direct like, oh, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm gonna hurt you. Again, you still probably wanted to hurt him, whatever. It's just there's not a hockey play from Jared Spurgeon. No part of the game do you cross check down into people's ankles. It's just frustrating, because there's no precedent now. Like, what's gonna happen, later on in the series if the Wild get frustrated again, or, as much as I hate to say it, the Blues are a aggressive bunch, and they're not going to take that sitting down and knowing that Jared Spurgeon will be in for the next game. I mean, Braden Shen said it himself. He said, good thing we're playing them again on Wednesday. This could get a little chippy. And that's the precedent that has been set. If you're not going to suspend someone for that, fine. Just don't be surprised when things get a little over the top in the next few games of this series. I mean, the Blues got a couple goons out there. Braden Shen certainly will go drop the gloves with Jared Spurgeon. I wouldn't be surprised to see, him going out there early. I saw a good take. I don't remember who it was, so apologies. But I saw someone say, like, don't fight Spurgeon until like game 3 or 4. Let him keep his head in a swivel, looking over his shoulder, waiting for that revenge. In game 2, don't let him get it out of the way early. Keep him nervous. But anyways, I digress. I think that would be kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, if that's the way that this series is gonna go, it was certainly chippy the whole way. Could be in for some more questionable instances. This might not be the first time that the Department of Player Safety is involved in this series, if that is the standard that they're going to set, unfortunately, and that goes both ways. That being said, spent a lot of time talking about that. Kind of quickly transition into the third segment, just because I want to spend time talking about the whole game and David Perron, like I said, and transitioning into the rest of the games of the series. So I'm going to head to the ad break a little bit earlier than usual, just so I have plenty of time to wrap up the game as a whole. Blues played really well in game 1. Took game 1 on the road, 4-0. Obviously, great. I don't know. I think they were kind of the betting underdogs in some scenarios. I'm not sure what their status was on Bet Online, but I still think they would be a pretty good bet to come out of this series. So if you want to put your money where your mouth is, you got to check out betonline.net. Now, betonline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season, plus hockey playoffs, obviously. BetOnline is your source for information from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts, and I'll be right back to wrap up today's episode. All right, so the Blues, like I said, 4 victory. And it was really spread out consistently. David Perron opened up this on the power play, the pretty nice goal, early on, 1-0. And then Ryan O'Reilly scored a nice little rebound to make it 2-0. And David Perron scored the next 2 goals to get himself a hat trick and put the game away 4-0. I thought that, I'm not sure if all 3 of his goals were on the power play. I know that one of his goals, the third goal, was initially credited as a power play goal, and then they took it away. But then I thought I saw a tweet that they put it back on the power play. I don't know. He might have had 3 power play goals, which whole different story is how damn good the Blues power play is. But I mean, look, the playoffs are a different animal, not to knock on Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. Those guys were the workhorses throughout the regular season and really carried this team. But when it comes down to the playoffs, you need those veterans to show up and play good hockey. And the 2 biggest veteran presence on the St. Louis Blues right now are David Perron and Ryan O'Reilly. And of course, both of them were probably the 2 best players in tonight's game, or last night's game. Sorry. I want to talk about Ryan O'Reilly a little bit first, because I think his game was a little bit more subtle in the way that he affected it. Obviously, had himself a goal, and I think he had an assist too. Let me check real quick before I continue this. Yeah, Ryan O'Reilly did have an assist on the first goal. So Ryan O'Reilly gets himself a goal and an assist, but he's also out there playing against the Kirill Kaprizov line for the entirety of the night and doing a spectacular job of shutting that line down. I mentioned how the Wild didn't have a whole lot of high danger scoring chances, and Ryan O'Reilly is a huge part of that. Kirill Kaprizov is one of the most dynamic players in the league, and Ryan O'Reilly gave him fits, made it difficult for that whole line to generate offense. And if O'Reilly can consistently do that throughout the series and throughout the playoff, teams are going to have a really hard time scoring on the St. Louis Blues. O'Reilly also contributed offensively. Kind of was a little bit cold down the stretch of the end of the regular season, and then turned it on in the last 2 games. I think he has 5 goals in his last 3 games. Dating back to the last 2 games of the regular season. So he has been on fire. And like I said, playing great defense, winning a lot of faceoffs as well. O'Reilly won the Conn Smythe for the St. Louis Blues in their cup run. And, there's no reason he couldn't do it again if the Blues go that far once again, especially with the way that he played in game 1. Moving on though, David Perron. What more can you say about him? 3 goals. I believe that was his first career playoff hat trick. Amazing stuff from Perron. The backstory. Left here in free agency, or was traded or something, and then came back to the St. Louis Blues. And then we exposed him in the expansion draft. Went to the Vegas Golden Knights, played there, and then came back to the St. Louis Blues. Has a lot of loyalty to St. Louis. Was an instrumental part of their success in the regular season. Had a really, really good regular season last year. And now he's turning that on for the playoffs as well. 3 goals, obviously nothing to sneeze at. The other thing about David Perron that is so underrated, I feel like, is his puck possession. On the power play, I feel like there were times when David Perron literally just made things happen, made scoring chances happen all by himself, just skating around the zone, protecting the puck. I bet David Perron is a big part of why the Minnesota Wild were so frustrated, because I don't know if there's a better guy on the St. Louis Blues at keeping the puck away from opponents and a harder guy to get the puck off of on the St. Louis Blues than David Perron. He is just a monster when he has the puck on his stick in terms of, being patient, waiting for the right play, making the right move, taking the right shot, making the right pass, whatever. And all 3 of his goals were perfect examples of that. I know he had that one on the rebound where he just showed a little bit of patience, got the puck, toe drag, sniped it into the open net. I mean, just a masterclass of offense from David Perron. And man, if he can play that hot throughout the rest of the series and the rest of the playoffs, he is going to be so fun to watch. And it's easy to forget that he was out with COVID for the entirety of their series against the Colorado Avalanche last year, and the offense struggled immensely with him out of the lineup in that playoff series. And the offense kind of struggled as well with him out of the lineup this season. So huge underrated piece of the St. Louis Blues offense is David Perron. I'm excited to see what the rest of this series looks like. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be this easy for the Blues as it was in game one. I'm still expecting this to go 5 or 6 games, 7 games even. The Wild are no slouch. Obviously, they look frustrated, but when they're playing the top of their game, they can give the Blues a run for their money. Like we saw in that overtime game a couple of weeks ago in the regular season, these teams are very, very evenly matched. And if the Wild don't play frustrated like they did, they can absolutely hang around with the St. Louis Blues. So it's going to be a fun series. In terms of some of like the X Factor guys that I talked about, that Tommy talked about, that Seth talked about, goaltending was a big question mark for the Minnesota Wild. And I think Fleury kind of dropped the ball. He let up a lot of big, juicy rebounds that turned into goals and didn't have the best game overall. Jonas Brodin was a guy that Seth mentioned. I think he played pretty well. But again, only so much you can do when you can't get offense. But yeah, and then, I talked about Jordan Kyrou as my X Factor, and he was all right, wasn't anything special. But yeah, I mean, overall, the players that you expected to show up for the St. Louis Blues did. And the good thing is, we still didn't see like a dominant game from Robert Thomas or Jordan Kyrou or even Vladimir Tarasenko or that whole line even didn't have a whole lot going for them, that Buchnevich, Thomas, Tarasenko line. So I'm excited to see what they can do in game 2. I'm excited to see what the rest of the offense can do in game 2. It should be fun. That being said, though, that is all the time we have for you today. Thank you all so much for listening. Make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. That way you never miss a new episode. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and that notification bell. Whenever we upload a video, you'll be the first to watch it. Leave us a comment. We'll interact with you in the comments. We like doing that. Follow us on all of our socials on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Locked On Blues. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Hyman NHL. You can follow Tommy, my co-host, on Twitter at TWelcher15. And always, let's go Blues.